Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the third webinar in our four-part Managed Services Journey webinar series, this one entitled Integrating Managed Services with Your IT Department. I want to welcome you to the webinar today. We've got a lot of great content planned for you today, and we're going to get started in just a moment. First, though, I just want to take a few minutes to introduce who's on the line with you today. My name is Holly Bignell. I'm going to be your webinar host, and I am ProServeIT's graphic designer. And joining me is Dave Mulligan, our amazing managed services manager here at ProServeIT, and my webinar co-host. Now, before we get started with the content, I'd like to point out to you that in the GoToWebinar platform on the right, you'll see a questions tab. If at any point during the webinar you have a question, please feel free to type it into the questions tab window, and I'll be happy to read out those questions as they come in. We do want to make sure that this experience is as organic as possible and ensure that you get the most out of your time with us today. So please don't be shy. Use the questions tab as often as you need to, and Dave and I will be happy to answer them for you. Just a little bit of the agenda today. Dave, if you could advance the slide there for me, please. Thank you. So let's start off with just a short introduction into who we are. First, we'll kind of describe who ProServeIT is. We'll then go into a more modern approach of working with internal IT within your organization. This webinar today is largely demo-based, so we do have a few interesting demos for you. The first being ConnectWise ticketing. Next, we'll move into Casaya, followed by MyGlue. And lastly, we'll go into some next steps and some Q&A. Before we do get started, based on this agenda, we'll just start off with that short introduction of who we are. So ProServeIT is a Microsoft Gold partner with a comprehensive focus on cloud transformation, managed services, software development, IT service desk, and technology consulting. We do have three main differentiators that we do like to focus on. First and foremost, we are in the business of eliminating IT debt. And what we mean by that is that we want to make sure you have the technology you need when you need it, and once you purchase it, you're getting the maximum ROI on your investment. Second, we put a security lens on everything we do. We want to help you manage your advanced cybersecurity risks and secure identity, data, and devices. We also implement this internally as well. So when you're a customer of ours, we're keeping your data safe as well. And last, we are your full stack technology partner. We're going to be with you from start to finish, helping you along every aspect of your digital transformation journey to the cloud. Dave, if you don't mind advancing the slide there for me. So on this slide, you'll see a few of our service offerings and technologies that we work with. So again, cloud transformation, professional services, software development, infrastructure, change management, managed services, and last but not least, IT roadmaps, which help you understand how to leverage IT as a critical business advantage and close the gap really between your business needs and your IT capabilities. So that's a little bit about ProServeIT, and that's going to do it from me from an About Us perspective. Now we'll just dive right into the meat and potatoes of our topic for today. Again, just a quick reminder that if you do have questions as we're going through the content, please utilize the questions tab, and Dave and I will make sure that your questions are answered before the webinar period is over. If you do have follow-up questions, we're always happy to answer those as well. So, all right, Dave, let's dive into the topic. I'm going to pass the mic to you, so to speak, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Holly. So just a little bit about myself. So I've been working in the information technology field now for a little over 11 years. I spent the first 6 years of my career working in technical roles ranging from, sort of junior service desk technician where I began, all the way up to senior infrastructure roles for different SaaS providers. And my last 5 years, I've been working in different IT leadership roles and participating in that side of information technology. I am a Microsoft certified MCITP, so I do still have some certifications under my belt in terms of technology credentials. And really, I love tech. I enjoy working in IT because I consider it my passion and my hobby, even when I'm not at work. I'm helping to support enterprise systems and businesses. I like to stay current with all the latest trends and a little bit of a geek on that side of things. definitely the focus of this webinar is thinking about how managed services can integrate with internal IT, and discussing, how that's really changed, and how it is part of a much more modern approach to information technology. As businesses start to really ramp up on technology and incorporating it into their businesses and using it more and more, even in a relatively short amount of time, the past 5 years or so, we're seeing a lot of small and medium businesses have really started to ramp up on the amount of tech that they use. Even from the commerce side, businesses today are relying more and more technology to help them sell, help them win, and help them to be competitive in their space, no matter what that space may be. So really, in all aspects of business across the board, we're seeing technology becoming more and more prevalent. That means that a lot of companies that were already heavily reliant on technology, even for the past 10, 15 years, as that need has grown for them, they're now starting to see this requirement where they need a blending of both internal IT support as well as managed services to help augment some of the gaps or allow their internal IT teams to be freed up so they can focus on much more strategic parts of the business where, maybe they want to keep that IP or strategic side of their business contained within their actual business itself. They're relying on their internal IT. So in our other webinars, a common thread that we've seen is that idea of becoming a partner and being a partner and not a vendor. This holds even more true when you're working with an internal IT team. The managed services provider is coming in and acting as a vendor. You're not going to have a great relationship with that internal IT. There's going to be this gap, and it's going to be a very cold relationship. So when looking to build this and have managed services integrate and work with your internal IT, you want to make sure that that managed services provider is going to be highly focused on being a partner. At the end of the day, you need to have really clear, open lines of communication with internal IT, between internal IT and the managed services provider. And you don't want to have gaps or the requirement for an executive or primary IT stakeholder to kind of sit in between those two groups. The other thing that's important to look at and how this modern approach can be seen is what value is being brought from the enterprise tooling perspective to the internal IT team from the managed services provider. Often internal IT has to spend their budget elsewhere. They don't necessarily have a large tooling budget. They have to spend their budget on internal projects or updating hardware, maybe other more critical pieces of software for them that are more specialized for their business. So they don't necessarily have that budget to be able to spend on tooling just to help them in their jobs and do more with less. So when you're looking at a managed services provider, it should be really important to see, well, what sort of tooling are they bringing with them that us as an internal IT team can start to tap into and use as well. Again, it's back to that idea too. It's important to see that managed services, again, historically, there was always this feeling with internal IT a lot of the time that managed services was there to replace them, to come in and take their jobs. We've seen this and felt this in the past when working with other internal IT, and it's really important to understand that in the modern IT landscape, it's really not that's really not what we're here for. What we are actually seeing more and more recently is that idea of we're being brought in to take on tasks that are often very draining on the staff, supporting end users or doing break fix activities, patching of Windows servers and operating systems, firmware on hardware devices, things where an internal IT person often has to make that decision of what am I not going to do in order to push along the strategic items that my leadership wants to see me pushing forward for the business. Maybe that is rolling out a new ERP system. That is actually a common thing that we see. Internal IT has been tasked with doing this massive ERP migration that, sometimes is expected to take half a year to a year to complete, but they start to get really delayed because in addition to doing that task that requires so much of their focus, they still have to support the end users. You still have to stay on top of updating things in order to make sure that they're still secure. And those things start to fall on the wayside. Or the ERP, say in this example, the ERP migration isn't happening as fast as the business would like it to or need it to. So by bringing in managed services, that's where we can free you up, because again, a good managed services provider should be able to offer a very modular experience, and be able to say, well, this is what we need you to support and what we need you to do, and we'll do these things. And obviously, when we need to, we're going to collaborate in the middle. I do go back to the ERP rollout because I think that's a really relevant example where there's often a lot of cross collaboration. Maybe your managed services provider is handling the support of all of the end users as that new ERP system gets rolled out. That's where managed services can help design, deployment methodologies and apply them and do mass touch rollouts of your new ERP. Or perhaps, an ODBC connector needs to be set up on different folks' workstations in order to tap into the database as part of using that ERP system. Again, managed services can help with that and take that workload off while the internal IT focuses on all the migration activities. It's also another way that, again, internal IT, often how they grow is it starts with one internal IT person, the business grows, they hire a second one, third one. But along the way, you're always working to keep up with that workload. IT people are always very busy in the companies. So there's not a lot of time to deploy what we call intake channels. What an intake channel is how you receive requests from your users and your user base. An intake channel could be email, could be phone, could be IM. There's even some businesses where you'll see it as a dedicated focused area for walk-up support. Because in the absence of that, and anybody that's worked in internal IT will see this, you end up getting users, catching you in the hallway when you're walking to the next desk that you're supposed to work on and help someone. Or they know where you sit and they'll come and see you right at your desk. You'll also get a lot of personal emails in your inbox, and again, you're not always checking your inbox. You don't always have time, so requests can get missed. What you would want to look for in building that modern partnership with an MSP as an internal IT department is, are they going to be able to introduce intake channels and bring that with them? So right away when you turn on managed services, you don't have to worry about deploying this and managing it yourself. You're going to have that email intake channel. You're going to have the phone number that you need for your staff to call. And you can start branding that and pushing it out to your staff. You can say, okay, well, if you need some IT help, this is how you access that IT services. You can email, this email address or call this phone number. And that way it'll get a ticket open and we can start processing your request and prioritizing it. Another thing is that idea of collaborating like a member of a team. And what does that mean? Well, you as an internal IT team should be able to tap into effortlessly anybody on the service desk that's going to be supporting you and in that managed services provider. So it means, perhaps you're already using Microsoft Teams and you can federate with that managed services provider so you can all collaborate over the same IM tooling. Or you're assigned a dedicated account lead where you have someone that you always interface with and it's that consistent interface touch point. But it's important to make sure that you talk to that MSP that you're looking at. How are you going to be able to collaborate with us as a team and build that relationship? How are you going to become that partner and give us the support that we want? Another added benefit of managed services and augmenting internal IT is the idea of subject matter experts. It's very difficult to have a subject matter expert for every piece of technology in an environment. You can even hire someone that's very talented and skilled and a subject matter expert in multiple things, but it's a pretty rare resource and person to find that's going to be that expert in everything. The nice thing about a managed services provider is they're a company built around technology professionals. I can say ProServeIT, for example, we're a Microsoft Gold partner, and we currently employ Microsoft SMEs for pretty much any aspect of the Microsoft stack. So if anything's going wrong with any of your Microsoft software, maybe that person isn't on the service desk, but they can tap into them in professional services or somewhere else in the company. Also, a managed services provider, due to the nature of their business, the way that they build partnerships, things like that, you'll be gaining access to escalated vendor support. I can think about Microsoft, again, from the ProServeIT perspective. We have escalation channels as a Microsoft Gold partner where you get to kind of skip not just ahead of the line, but immediately up to the next tier support. That can be very, very beneficial, especially if a critical system is offline and you need to get it back up and running sooner rather than later. It's going to save you that extra few hours. That's just going to make all the difference to your business to get you back online and get things back up and running, when you need it. You can also take the stress out of solution shop. Some people enjoy the idea of going to shop for new servers or new laptops or whatever it may be. But there's a lot of people that just don't have time for it, and it's just another, it's just another patch of mud that's slowing you down in your day. MSPs can take that away from you. At that point, you just have to say, well, bring me the 3 best options for the laptops that we should be looking for my staff. This is what I want them to be. Someone else on the managed services provider is going to go and do all that shopping, so to speak, and looking for the best price and figuring out the best vendor to go with, making recommendations. So you as the internal IT person can still focus on the other more critical work, the bigger fires that you're dealing with that day. And that piece of solution shopping can still get handled.
So Dave, if I'm hearing this correctly, then we kind of come in, augment your IT department. We're almost, supportive in the sense that we'll take over those small mundane tasks that you really don't want to focus a lot of your time on so that you can handle those bigger items coming down the pipeline.
That's exactly it, and even the bigger ones where you need that expert to really come in because something's broken or gone wrong in such a way that you really need that subject matter expert. Again, it's much easier to tap into that versus having to again shop around and find maybe a separate different consultant just to come in and help with the support of that, which really delays resolution.
Yeah, having that specialized opinion on hand could be kind of really save a lot of time, create greater efficiency.
Absolutely. So kind of the next thing that I wanted to dig into, kind of moving away from, just PowerPoint and death to everybody, is actually get into some live demos. Show you hands-on some of the tooling that I'm talking about, because that is something that, again, can be very valuable. Often these enterprise-grade tools for doing mass deployments, management of systems, even documentation, they can be, somewhat costly. And when you have to be really sensitive to how you spend your IT budget, you're not always going to have that capital to purchase them. But chances are you're not going to have the time to deploy them, configure them, maintain these systems either. So a managed services provider should be bringing that tooling with them when they come in to support your environment. So the first tool that I wanted to talk about is that idea of intake channels and a ticketing system. Again, it's no fault of their own, but a lot of internal IT teams don't necessarily have a robust set of intake channels, nor do they have a ticketing system sitting behind that that's going to allow them to aggregate and pull data out of their tickets, target where their pain points are in their support and their staff, whether that be, the ability to go to upper management and say, hey, we need to earmark some dollars for some training on Office 365, and here's why, or maybe you're trying to keep an eye on a new line of business application and understand just how many support requests are coming in and for what. Again, you might have to go back and talk to that vendor about some of the challenges, or you might have to look at additional training for that new product. The tool that we use is called ConnectWise. That's our ticket management system. Our primary form of intake channel is email. For us, you just email help@ProServeIT.com. The subject line, you'd make that sort of the summary of what you wanted your ticket to be. And then in the base of the email, the body of the email rather, you would put in what the actual issue is or articulate, what you want support on. And this is where you can send that out to all of your users. The nice thing is too about our ticketing system is it doesn't have to be help@ProServeIT.com. Definitely one of the reasons why we selected ConnectWise is its flexibility to have more and more email intake channels. It's quite easy to actually set up where, you as an internal IT department, you could have it at help at your domain. That way, all of your users would be very comfortable for them to email. We could put it in your gal. It makes it very easy for them to access that email address. So for the purposes of the demo, we will focus more on the email experience. We also offer phone and IM solutions. Later on in the demo, I'll also show where you can be using Casaya, our other tool, to do messaging with users, whether it be a one-way communication where you just want to blast out some quick informative information. Maybe it's an emergency patch or just a warning, hey, everybody do not open an email from the sender, something like that. Or a two-way chat where you as an administrator want to initiate a chat with the user. So for this demo, we're going to focus on email. So as you can see, I've created the email. I put in my subject line, demo for ticket, just a little bit of an explanation what the actual issue is. That then comes into our ticketing system and the service board, and it has the ticket number as the first page. The status is still a new email, so it's also tracking and showing you which intake channels are used the most. because, you know, if you're seeing more and more that people are using email and you want to balance that out or start to direct more calls to phone, you have that data where you can see it and be able to talk to key stakeholders and say, you know, we need to go on a bit of a campaign to blast our support, you know, phone number, or we're not really seeing that many tickets on any of them. It's kind of balanced, but they're pretty low. So how do we start to blast out our intake channels more and again, bring awareness about them? It's going to show the company. Now, this is less relevant for an internal IT team because it will always be your company that you'd see in this view. But the summary description would be what the summary or subject line for the email was that came in. If it was a phone call, a tech would manually enter that information. And that's where they could tag it with something like the user's first name and the first bit of their last name, just for easier searching later on. In our ticketing system here, the nice thing is it is designed to be an IT tool first. That's what the ConnectWise platform is it's designed for IT companies and MSPs. So it's very much geared for IT people to access and search and go back and do reporting, as well as, you know, pull up old information and tickets. All you have to do is put a star and then whatever you want your query to be in any of these fields. And it'll do its best to pull up all the results that match that. So maybe, you know, a user had a ticket. They couldn't quite remember the full ticket number, but they remembered, you know, the first 3 digits were 963. You could just go star 963 and it would pull up all the tickets that began with that. So it helps to lower it and chop it down a little bit more. Once you open up the ticket, again, it has all of the relevant fields that you need. It's going to give you your company, but more importantly, it's going to give you the contact information for that user. So it's right in front of your text faces. Again, you may know the names of everybody that works at your company, but, you know, most they're not going to remember the phone number, maybe the email address. You might have a very large business or a business with a number of sites. It's going to help identify where that user is actually physically located right there in all one single pane of view. These statuses here, the board is just the service board that it operates on. So again, that would stay the same for an internal IT team. But the status, you can start to use statuses. Is it assigned? Is it in progress? You could do type and subtype and even item to start to build up that reportability on what's actually using the bulk of your IT support and where your users are struggling. By identifying this, you can then start to run, you know, weekly, monthly reports, whatever you want to do, and review and see, okay, where is the staff having the biggest problems with, or, you know, where are we seeing most of our IT time go towards? These other pieces over here are more relevant to an MSP, not so much an internal IT team. There would only be one agreement, and that would be your agreement with the MSP. But the priority can absolutely be one that's relevant for internal IT. Again, that starts to introduce that level of change management and change control within an environment by actually taking the work that you do and prioritizing it. That can be very hard in an environment where it's internal IT and you're receiving a lot of user walk-ups. Especially when a user is in a point of frustration, it can be hard to help them realize that maybe their issue, although it feels like a very big priority to them, it's not necessarily the biggest priority out there. So, you know, it can help with those conversations by simply receiving the tickets in, taking them, maybe doing some basic triage, and then looking at a day and looking at your team and assigning work out based off of the priority now. So a priority 1, 2, or 3, even a 4 issue. What we can see here is in the initial description, that's where the body of the email would be, or again, that's where you'd want to type out what the actual, you know, summary of the problem is, or read what a user is describing to you. Because it's often coming in over email, a user can attach pictures, or we've even seen folks, you know, take screenshots and put them into Word documents and attach that, and you can still get all of that data as the tech that's working to support the issue. So the point about tracking all communication actually goes a step further. And again, as organizations evolve and become more complex, often then they're going to be subject to a number of different auditing processes. That be Sarbanes-Oxley or SOC 1, 2, or 3, you know, ISO. There's all of these different auditing processes and ultimately certifications for a business to go through where they need to see their IT systems and how they're doing IT be highly auditable. The great thing about ConnectWise and centralizing all of your IT requests into this system through the intake channels is every single click, every single action. Again, even going back to train your staff to send emails from within the ticket using that email button, which will send to that email address, means now the entire process of supporting an IT issue is now completely auditable with timestamps, showing which user did it, and you know, it tells you exactly what they were doing when. Auditors love to see this stuff, to the point that a number of them need to actually see it as part of the requirement for passing the audit. They need to be able to show that auditable trail of change and actions that take place. Now, again, for an MSP, we deal in time. It's incredibly common. All MSPs typically have timesheets. So within each ticket and attaching to the ticket itself, you can go in and do detailed time records. For internal IT team, you might even look at that as a way of evolving your team, or if there's any work being done, so you can go back and reference it as a knowledge base to say when you did it. This would still be a feature that would be available to internal IT teams that have access to our program. The next demo that I wanted to show everybody is that idea of Casaya and a virtual systems administrator tool. Now, I being an administrator in the tool, I have access to way more components of it. That's because it's necessary for an MSP to have access to these things. But what we can do with Casaya is we can actually carve out for your team members and give you very focused aspects and access within Casaya. What we see is the most common is two things. IT departments want to have, you know, a lot of that command and control capabilities of their workstations on their environment, so they can remote access machines, have remote task management, you know, command prompt, the messaging capabilities that I talked about. The other piece is reporting and how you can once you have agents installed across all of your machines, workstations, and servers, how you can start to pull data out of that to do reporting for inventorying, or again, that idea of maybe you want to look at, well, how many Windows 7 machines do we still have left in the environment? Or I can think a few years back, there was a problem with AMD processors and HP laptops. So maybe you want to actually say, well, we deployed a lot of HP machines. Let's see how many have AMDs, because we want to be proactive and get those replaced and upgraded with Intel chipsets, before those AMDs fail. I'll just hop out here. And now, Holly, just confirm that you can still see that screen, that it's still showing my web browser here.
Yeah, I can still see it.
Wonderful. So this is the Casaya portal, and this is what it would look like for your team. They would be given a username and password, as well as we'd set you up with multi-factor authentication, being the tool that it is. I don't have to MFA because I've already authenticated myself here for the day, just to speed along the demo. So once you log in, what your team would see is not all of these. You'd see agent, you'd see remote control. Remote control, again, even then, you're not going to see policy settings. You're not going to see configure, because those are for me as administrator. But what you will see is desktop control, files and processing, and messaging with users. You'd also see your machine group with your company name and the different views. Typically what we set up, again, to keep things more simple and just more manageable for internal IT teams, so we would just have all servers and workstations. For the purposes of the demo today, we're going to focus on the workstations. And this is what you would see. So right away at a quick glance, you can see who's logged in, the name of all the machines, and you see a couple of different icons here. The nice thing about Casaya is it does give you a legend of what those icons mean. So I wouldn't go too deep into detail, but it's going to give you that high level detail of kind of right out of the gate, what's going on with that machine. Our demo machine here is going to be my Windows 10 VM that I have here. If you just hover over the green dot when it's online, it's going to pull up a little window here. Again, that idea of quick, powerful access. And it can show you different things you can do. You can access documents. You can download a file from the user's machine. You can view add, remove applications. So that's the same as the add, remove view on the machine. You can even do remote control. So remote control is what I wanted to show everybody today. So you just click on that green dot. One of perhaps the nicest things about Casaya, and it's actually something that they pride themselves on, is how fast that remote control window popped up. So it's very, very seamless when you're accessing a user's machine. The point, I'm going to get my password right here. Even if a user's offline or maybe it's the end of the day and they said, hey, when I leave for the day, you'll be able to log into their machine still, even at that login screen. Go in and do whatever work you need. Now, right now, I have full command and control of the machine. I can, install a new app if I want to. I can do some troubleshooting. You can see all the different apps loading here. And maybe in here, this is where I would need to do, install a new piece of software, do some troubleshooting because, maybe they can't log into Microsoft Teams. So I can hop in here and take care of that. And again, in how this helps and how it starts to shift your internal IT away from desk side support and towards a remote support model is this actually becomes easier for the users. And that's always important when you're looking to shift that support model to remote support and how we can help internal IT do that. Because by providing this tooling to internal IT, they can support users in the same way that we do. In the sense that a user doesn't even have to leave their desk. They don't even have to go to your desk to find you. And that's what we often use as one of the selling points to help businesses transition to remote support. I'll just log out of that. As you can see, you can do full reboots. It's exactly like being on the machine. Same thing with log in, log out. If you need to lock the computer, whatever you need to do to interact with it. I'll also give you some handy troubleshooting data right there in the form of latency. This helps us where maybe we can connect to one machine and it shows a relatively low latency like that, but another user that's complaining about things running slowly and they're working from home, you can connect to their machine and right away see their latency is much higher. It gives you that really quick point of troubleshooting and information. So this is where you can do remote task management. Now, why remote task management is nice is because maybe we definitely see this in the past. There might be a problem with a user's application, and it's a common problem where all you have to do is go to their machine, pull up Task Manager, and kill the process on something. You can do that all remotely here from Casaya. So if a user emailed you or phoned you to say, hey, my QuickBooks is frozen again, and I can't kill it, it's just completely frozen on the screen. As the internal IT guy that supported this 10 times, what you have to go and do. So no an issue with QuickBooks. You really have to just go and actually, kill the task of the machine. You can do that all remotely here from Casaya from your desk without actually having to leave it. So tasks like that would normally take, 15 minutes because you have to get up, you have to go and walk to the person's desk, just do something as basic as kill the task and then go back to your desk. Now you can do it in a fraction of the time, all while sitting here because you have this remote capability. You can also quickly see too, which services are in use or maybe someone's complaining about something being really slow. It allows you to quickly pull this up. So, what's using the most memory, what's using the most CPU. Aha, maybe it was that QuickBooks service. You can go and address it right away. You also then have FTP capabilities and SSH capabilities, depending on which direction you want it to go and how security focused your environment is. This is incredibly powerful for being able to remotely drop deployment packages, or maybe you just need to upload a single file to someone's machine that you're going to need. Historically, you'd have to drop it in a network share and consume that space on a disk, where by having our system, you would just be pushing it directly from your machine to their machine over FTP. The chat function, I'm actually gonna get back in here and remote control my machine so we can see how that works. You have two different functions. You have a two-way chat where you can communicate with the user from a support perspective. You will also have the ability to send messages either to just one machine, whatever machines you selectively want to send them to, or your entire company, where it's a one-way message. Think of it more like as just a status alert. Heads up everybody, there's some emergency downtime in 10 minutes. Everybody please save all of your work and shut down your computers. Something like that. We'll quickly pull this up and log back in. As you can see, very, very quick. It's not even taking me that much time, and tell that okay. Pull up the chat window so I can show everybody that capability. It's just gonna want to start a million things. Go Windows. Just try refreshing that. That's probably because I started the session mid-login. There we go. And you will have to make some configuration within your environment, but again, you can do that with Casaya, where when you open up Internet Explorer, it's not going to open that nice little Windows News tab to let you know what's going on in the wonderful world of Windows. The refresh rate is set to 10 seconds, so it will take a couple moments. You can also customize and tailor this depending on what you want. We leave it at 10 seconds at the fastest, simply because that makes the most sense for instant messaging. You can now have that discrete chat with the user back and forth with, again, a lot of people don't like using the phone. We do see that more and more. Everybody would rather in their day, they just find it less intrusive. It's much more optimal to operate over, email or instant messaging. So it's a way that you can do that with users and just quickly pop this up. You don't have to install, another app that's just going to have to start at load up. It's using built-in technology to all Windows machines in the form of Internet Explorer. It gives you a way that you can actually talk back and forth with the user quickly. The nice thing is, too, this is one that would also pop up in kind of the user's face and signal like, well, hey, someone from IT wants to hop on my machine. So from an internal IT perspective and governance, maybe the person has set their internal IM, Skype, Teams, Slack, whatever it may be that you guys use internally to a do not disturb mode. This is a way of kind of overriding that, especially when you're dealing with some form of IT support. Now, the one tool that I find incredibly helpful is this idea of the blast. Because often people struggle with that idea of, well, we have to let our staff know about some emergency maintenance or some security threat, something that we want to draw attention to. It's not necessarily a communication about something, but rather a notification about something. This instantly gives you that system to do that. From in this example, maybe my email address has been compromised and I am now sending out some very, very bad links to everybody in the company. You can select your entire business. You can select just a few machines. You can even change, you want a browser dialog box. Again, when we find these notifications, we would always encourage use of the dialog box. You can also schedule it, because maybe it's one to just notify everybody of maintenance and you just need to make sure they shut down their machines, or maybe it's the night before you do some sort of patching on one of your products. You just kind of want to blast out and remind everybody, hey, tonight is update night. Please make sure everybody leave on their computers. Just, log out, don't power off. So you would do that, and then you would send the message. And what the user would see on their workstation is this pop-up. Again, all it is a pop-up message. They can't respond or anything. They would just see the message that you typed them. Then they can click OK. So that notification tool, again, historically, when you're in internal IT, you have to go and either custom build that, which is a lot of time and a lot of effort, or you have to go and buy a tool to do it. By partnering with a managed services provider like ProServeIT, it just comes with part of the tooling that we bring with you in terms of that, building a partnership and support experience. The other tool that many IT providers or internal IT teams rather struggle with is that idea of being able to run reports and auditability. Maybe it's even something that they struggle with in the form of asset management. Once we have the agent installed on the machines and it completes its check-in process, what we can do is we can actually come in here and start to see some pretty powerful information. You can see a list of all of your workstations. I've set these fields, so we can actually change the fields and what data is being reported on. This is all the different data points that you have the ability to report on from any machine that has an agent on it. And when I say machine, that could be a virtual machine, a server, a physical server, a workstation, whatever it may be. For example, the machine that I've been showing you guys in this demo is actually an Azure virtual workstation. So even there, if it's a Windows desktop or Windows-based OS, we can install an agent on it. Same thing with Linux and Mac. So we do cover the 3 major operating systems. So again, for the purpose of this demo, I thought, hey, maybe this is one where you just want to see which machines are domain joints. We can clean that up, and sort of what CPUs they have and what their serial numbers were, so we can match that up and actually turn this into an asset report and really understand what machines, what folks are using. The last check-in time was simply the last time that I checked in, had internet, and checked in with the agent. So again, that can be some relevant information where you're trying to see like, well, are people actually leaving the agent enabled? Maybe there's some old workstations that have been retired and we just want to make sure they're cleared out from the system, whatever that may be. But all of these reports are fully exportable. You can export them in CSV files so you can manipulate that data. Maybe you don't need to change it or manipulate it at all, and you just want to provide it to a manager or an executive stakeholder. You can just export it as a PDF and give it to them that way. Again, when you would go in the Agents tab, you would have not everything that I have. You don't need to manage the package. In fact, you don't need to do any of this. All that we tend to actually give folks is the Manage Agents field in Agents, so that way you can use this as a reporting mechanism for your environment. So the next tool that I wanted to show everybody that we bring with us specifically from ProServeIT when we partner with internal IT teams is called MyGlue. So one of the most overlooked yet important parts of supporting an IT environment, both from an internal IT or even a managed services perspective, is that idea of documenting an environment. Again, as the IT landscape's changing, we're seeing more complex IT environments, certainly a heavier use of technology within businesses, and more auditory requirements being prevalent in business. Documentation is becoming absolutely critical. So we have actually invested in a documentation system, and as part of an onboarding, when we come into a client environment, is we use this to document pretty much everything. It's a very IT-specific documentation system that's built for doing just this, and it's called IT Glue, and then MyGlue is the user function, the collaboration side of it. What this allows us to do is both teams, as we're working and updating documentation rather, making changes in the environment, maybe we're updating an IP for something, or a brand new multi-function printer gets deployed in the environment. So it's a collaborative effort. ProServeIT is saying, okay, here's the configuration for that printer. So we would go in here and we would update and say, this is the new printer. This is the passwords for that printer. But you, the internal IT person, perhaps, internal IT is still owning care and control of all the network functions because they need to from that security perspective. You would be going in to document all of the different IPs, all of the different other pieces of that new printer that would be relevant. What printer it's selecting to, the support information. You could go in and actually update the vendor. Maybe it has a different vendor from some of your other printers that you have in your environment. So what this portal allows you to do is quickly, again, multi-location. Contacts is going to show all of the users. So as users change, or maybe you yourself, maybe Annie at your organization here, she changes her last name because she gets married, and you know about that, and you're actually the one to go and update that as internal IT. By updating it here, it actually synchronizes across all systems. So the next time someone from ProServeIT maybe has to support and help Annie, they know that her last name has changed. Same thing with passwords. Historically, with a managed services internal IT relationship, what we've seen is this is actually one of the greatest stumbling points. Someone changes a password somewhere and the other person loses access to it. By collaborating on passwords in a common system, everybody's looking at the same thing. And if that password changes, you actually can just go in here and update it. And then everybody's using the same password. Again, that idea of auditability, you can actually see the auditable changes, who changed it last. So perhaps Oscar is a member of the internal IT team. I could see, okay, he changed it on this date and time. Even if I wanted to ask why, I could go and ask why. Domain and SSL tracker. This means that you receive the same automated alerting system that we do. So no longer you have to go and remember to put it in your Outlook calendar or anything like that. You're going to receive automated alerts when these things are going to expire. So when that cert's automatically going to expire in 2020, we would have it set. We actually do 90 days. So 90 days before it's going to expire, it's going to start sending you reminders. So someone can action then. It's also joint accountability. Perhaps it's their managed services providers, or in this case, ProServeIT's responsibility to make sure those are renewed. You can track and check in and just say, hey guys, I don't see it updated in IT Glue. Has that updated yet? Or are you guys aware of it? It just makes sure that everybody's aware of those conversations. Even in terms of documents, again, circling back to that idea of internal IT deploying a new ERP system. As you, the internal IT team, are learning about that new ERP and generating how-to guides and how to install, how to do these things, and those are tasks that your managed services provider is going to be responsible for helping with down the road. You can be creating and uploading all of your how-to documents into here, and again, where we can start to actually link them. That's the glue piece of it to different applications. So now we would go through and take the time to document. So you'd have your vendor for your new ERP system. You document all of your licensing information for your ERP system. You would document and make sure that the server is updated for where that ERP system is going to live. And then when you actually finally hit the point of documenting it as one of your new applications or your new ERP, you'd be able to link it in through all of that. You'd link your vendor, your license information, your how-to guides for how to install or troubleshoot issues or configure it correctly. And right away, that managed services IT provider is going to be able to provide the same quality of support to your team that you guys already are. So that ensures that the support experience between internal and IT and managed services, there's no discrepancy. Again, historically, without a tool to collaborate like this, we do see there can often be some feedback surrounding that. My internal IT knew how to do this and did it really quickly. Why don't you guys? Oftentimes, it's just a matter of there's a gap in that collaboration and systems and data between the two teams.
So this kind of really gives you your end-to-end holistic view from both sides.
That is correct, exactly. So that kind of wraps up the demos here, Holly. Sorry, I started at the very beginning of the slide deck. So
no problem.
We'll just get to your slide here.
Before we get into the demo, perfect. I just wanted to remind everyone that this is the third webinar in our 4-part managed services webinar series. So as you can see, we do have one more webinar coming up. Please note that if you are interested in signing up for the last webinar in our series, we'll be sending out the link in our follow-up email that you'll receive in just a few days, and you can use that link to sign up. So just briefly, our 4th webinar on October 29th is all about next steps after you've signed your managed services agreement. So we'll talk about ongoing continuous managed services support, help you understand your monthly and quarterly managed services reporting, and much more. So again, the link for this webinar will be sent to you in the follow-up email we'll be providing. Dave, do you mind advancing the slide for me, please? So now we're just going to get into some next steps and how that looks. So we've talked a lot in this series about whether managed services is right for you and about choosing the right managed services provider, but nothing is as good as having a one-on-one discussion so that you can really determine if managed services is right for your specific organizational needs and whether managed services really would meet your organizational goals and objectives. So right now, those of you on the line or those registered with us for this webinar, you can take advantage of our free 1-hour consultation to see if ProServeIT's managed services can help augment your IT department. So this is where our experts will sit down with you and really go through your specific needs, what you're looking for, and more. So if you are interested in this consultation, again, a free 1-hour consultation, please email us at cloud@proserveit.com and we'll get started. But for now, we'll move into the more formal Q&A session. Please type your questions into the questions tab as mentioned, and we'll answer them as they come up. We'll just give it a minute or so for people to log in their questions, and we'll be right with you. Oh, wow. Okay, so we have a question right out of the gate, actually. So Diego is asking, we have a lot of user requests and help desk issues in our organization. Is this something that managed services would be able to help? Dave, would you be able to answer to that?
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of our primary service offerings is IT service desk, and that would be what we would be talking to you about to help with that piece. Again, that's actually one of the more common relationships that we see, Diego, is we'll step in and help with the user service desk piece and help with all of those user requests, administration, break fix activities, installing applications, resetting passwords, and helping people log into things. What would also come as a part of that is perhaps you as an internal IT team want to start rolling out, some better security features like MFA. Well, we'd step in as your service desk and help with the user configuration side of that. And oftentimes that can be, the biggest, most time consuming part of a rollout like that. So certainly is one of our offerings, and we kind of have a couple of different flavors and directions that you could go with that. You could go with the idea of like an all you can eat package where it's unlimited service desks, phone us as much as you want, whenever you want. Or, maybe you don't think you need a lot, you just want to purchase a little bit so you can start to buy bundles of service incidents where, that bundle will obviously scale up and down depending on how much you need it. But that way, you're not paying for too much, to help you control those IT costs for that one piece of your IT support.
Perfect. Thank you for that thorough answer, Dave. And Diego, if you do have any further questions in regards to user requests and help desk issues as it relates to managed services, please do feel free to enter it into the questions tab, or we can take the conversation offline. And Dave, we actually did have another question roll in, this one from Claudia. What would stop a managed services provider from taking control of all aspects of IT support? Good question.
It's hard to say that never happens, to be honest, Claudia. But again, when I think about a more modern IT practice and typically what businesses want, when we see a business that does have, a fairly well-established internal IT, they're really looking for help and to augment that. Maybe not to necessarily grow that IT, but rather to optimize and better utilize what they have today. So shift the service desk piece to a managed services, or maybe it's the inverse, the actual, maintenance and doing Windows patching and firmware updating, and just offload that piece that's often, I would never say a waste of your internal IT's time, but it's taking them away from their true value, which is helping with much more specialized parts of the business and, more focused IT initiatives. Or it's because, that business really, really likes that, their users have that hands-on IT staff on-site presence. So they want to make sure that their IT team can focus on that. So I would say in a modern IT support scenario, it's never about replacement. It's about augmenting and allowing the internal IT team to do more with increasingly less time.
Okay, that makes sense. And we actually have another question here, Dave, for us. So how does this model tie the purchasing of cloud-based resources like Azure for the customer? Is it part of the managed services or separately offered?
It can be both. So ProServeIT is actually what's called a CSP, or cloud services provider. So we specialize in Azure cloud. So the scale up, scale down, licensing, support, everything to do with your Azure cloud and your Azure tenant then runs through us. So we do offer that as a separate service. But if you go with one of our fully managed agreements, that comes along with it, just management of your Azure tenant. So it really depends on the direction that you want it to go with that, but we can actually support it in both ways. And even tying it back to that idea of how this helps you as a user and the benefit of it, again, partnering with a managed services provider for your cloud, you do get access to rapid support through us being a CSP provider. You also get to instantly jump to that next level tier of cloud support. You also don't pay for any of your cloud support tickets at that point, regardless of what it's going to be. That's all handled through us. Even from an SME perspective, ProServeIT being Microsoft Gold partner as well as a CSP, we have a pretty deep bench full of Azure experts that can help with design and stay current on Azure as it's rapidly evolving and releasing new functions and features. So even if it's just helping with designing, a cloud from a best practices standpoint, looking at a cloud migration, that's all tied into the service, and all those resources are available.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. I think we were able to answer that question. For us, is thank you. But for us, if you have any other follow-up questions, please feel free to email cloud@proserveit.com. And Dave is more than happy to further explain or expand on his answer there. I think that does it for us today. I'm not seeing any questions roll in. I'll give it one more minute if you have any last minute burning questions for us. So we'll stay on the line for another minute. Yeah, I think that does it for us. So, all right, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in at this time. So that's going to do it for us here today. If you do have other questions, though, please do feel free to email us again at cloud@proserveit.com, and we'll be more than happy to get in touch with you with an answer. But that's going to wrap it up here for us. On behalf of Dave and I really want to say thanks for joining us today, and we'll hopefully see you at our future webinar, like the one happening on October 29th. So thank you so much, and have a great day.